Hello there. Welcome to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and tonight I have a brand new product sneak for you, as well as a masculine layout. So two of my favorite things. I have a whole bunch of designer series paper, the same pattern left over from many projects that I did last month that I had to create multiples of. And I ended up with these extra sheets, so I wanted to use those up and maybe reduplicate a layout. So we have the Everyday You and Me Scrapbooking Workshop Kit and the Everyday Happiness Designer Series Pattern Paper and Sticker Sheet, which we're going to use today. Both of these are going to be my May featured collection, but since I had so many patterns left over from the Designer Series paper, I thought that I would create a duplicatable layout. So I have this pattern paper, the Designer Series paper from Everyday Happiness. It's so beautiful. There's 4 sheets each of 3 double-sided patterns, but this pattern here is what I have the most of. So I thought that I might take this ombre splatter pattern and sort of put it side by side, cut it at different lengths from the top and from the bottom so that it looked like it sort of went together across the page. So I end up with a 9 by 10.5 cutting from the top. So cutting just a little bit on the left page off of the bottom, and then on the right I cut the same amount off of the top so that the two of those side by side would end up looking like they're flush right next to each other. So you can see how I cut off the bottom on the left and I cut off the top on the right sheet so that when I put those together they look like they're cohesive, that they go side by side. The final measurements of each of those again is 9 by 10.5, one cut from the top and one cut from the bottom. Now, with this collection, the Very Vanilla was said to be one of the coordinating colors. So I just was trying that out to see if I like it, and I ended up liking the white better. Now you're going to see lots of photo place card holders here. I want lots of photos on this layout, and this is going to be a layout for myself and my husband on a little trip that we took. But those of you that know me and that have been around for a while know that my husband does not allow his photos on social media. He's a super private person. He works our farm and our ranch and lives a simple life and does not have social media. And so I have to respect him. Sometimes it's a challenge for me because it makes it look like I don't have a husband, but I promise you we do lots of amazing things together and I scrapbook us a lot, but I have to respect his wishes and not put his photos on Facebook. So basically I'm arranging photo place card holders, and those will be our little vacation photos. So we had a little trip that involved boating and also in the trees. So we got a little bit of both worlds. We were on the water and in the woods at different times on this trip. And so I'm so very excited to get these photos scrapped, and this was a perfect collection. So I decided that I want this to be a little bit offset, not super wonky, but a little bit offset. So I just tilted it so very slightly, maybe not even a ½ inch on the bottom. And then I'm going to trim a teeny tiny bit off of the edge just so that it looks like it's going uphill. So the ombre papers are going to fit flush next to each other so that those colors match as they're going uphill across the paper. And the easiest way that I know how to do it was just to trim that little bit off of the left and then line up the right side and trim those off as well. So I'm going to put the two 12 by 12 willow white bases next to each other, get my colors lined up the way that they're supposed to, and then draw a little bit of a line in pencil on the area that needs to be trimmed on the right piece. So it was really super easy to trim the left because I could just trim around that base. So sorry, I have my hair up in a bun and it's sticking out into the camera here. I get it fixed here in just a second. The hazards of long hair. All right, so you can see I barely took any off of that, but just enough to give that a little bit of a slant. Now, I created these long and skinny chevrons on the Cricut, but I want to show you how to create those yourself. So if I create them by hand, people will say, why didn't you just make those on the Cricut? If I create them on the Cricut, people will say, I don't have a Cricut. So I want to show you both ways. So I have a little square here. I think it's a 4x4 square, and I'm going to show you my traditional way of making chevrons. I simply gut a square by cutting 1 inch all the way around. Then I cut that square on a diagonal, and it makes a square chevron. Now I'm actually changing my blade here. So if you have the Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, the blades are replaceable, and I love to clean out my trough there and when I replace my blades. So I really want a long and narrow chevron. I don't want a boxy square chevron. So I've cut a white piece at 2 1/4 by 10. And I'm going to mark that at 5 inches, which is half. I'm going to come up from the bottom 1 inch on both sides. And then I'm actually going to cut on a diagonal from the 5-inch mark to that 1 inch mark. And so you just have to make sure that those lines are lined up in your trough. You'll be able to see those dots that you make with a pencil. They'll be right in the line of your trough. So I'm going to line up that 1 inch mark and the 5-inch mark. Make sure those pencil marks are right in my trough, and that makes the top of the chevron. Now I'm going to measure 1 inch down in the center, and I'm going to go from that 1 inch down mark to the very bottom corner. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line those marks up in my trough. So I'm going to go from corner to the dot, and it seems like it would be tricky, but it isn't, because you can see that dot right there in the trough in that center line. So I'm going to go to that. I can lift it up and make sure I'm all the way. Then I'm going to rotate and go from corner to that 1 inch down mark at the 5-inch mark where I went 1 inch down. And it's going to create the perfect long and skinny chevron. So whether you make your chevrons on the Cricut or whether you make them by hand, they're 2 1/4 by 10. And the reason that I went with 10 was because the base paper is 10 1/2. Now that I have the white base, I would simply use that as a pattern and put that on any color that I needed. And so I can make Lost Lagoon chevrons, and I can make wild wheat chevrons. And you can see the difference between a perfect square chevron and a chevron created out of a rectangle. And I just kind of wanted super long, narrow chevrons for this, and I see myself putting a couple on the left and a couple on the right. And at this point in the video, I couldn't decide if they would both be Lost Lagoon or if they would be wild wheat and Lost Lagoon. So now I just want to make sure that I can get lots of photo opportunities. So in these trip photos, my husband and I have some scenery photos. We have us in the boat. We have some hiking. We have a lot of great photos. And so I really wanted to just document with my journaling. So I've journaled on, I just journaled in a Word document and printed it on cardstock and cut it out. And it is 3 1/2 by, let me check that. I think it's by 4. Yes, 3 1/2 by 4. Now I left a little extra space over on the left and a little less space over on the right of the journaling because I'm going to do a little bit of decorating there, I'm sure. I don't know exactly what I'm going to use, but I have a few ideas for with some stamp and die sets that are going to be brand new in May that we are in pre-order for. And I was so happy that I'd saved the everyday happiness and the everyday Day You and Me set for last. They're my May featured collection because I have so many new stamps and dies that I can add to it now, and I'm so excited. So I've created a 1/2 inch strip with the stripe paper, excuse me, a 1-inch strip with the stripe paper. So it's 1 by 11.5. And then I did a basic gray at 3/4 by 11, and I see myself arranging these under the photo. And the checkered piece is 4 by 7.5, the gingham. Now I originally think that I might add the wild wheat pattern paper in here, but then I didn't like it because it covered up too much of that gorgeous ombre in the background. Also, I'm going to reduplicate these layouts, and I'm going to be creating these for projects for others. For this layout, I'm going to use a few stickers from the sticker sheet, but for the layout that I'm going to reduplicate, I'll just be adding dies because I want to reduplicate it and I won't have multiple sticker sheets, but I have all of this leftover pattern paper that I can use. So I'm just trying to get dry placement. And I sort of am looking at the photos and I think, I don't really like that wild wheat under there, but I do need a little something to help offset the pictures. So I create out of Lost Lagoon a 3 by 5 inch piece that I think will work. You actually could probably get by with 3 by 2 because the stripe strip is going to cover up so much of it. Only a little bit of it is going to show, but a lot of times you don't know if you can conserve paper until you get the base pieces down. And so I'm just still working with that wild wheat pattern, and I absolutely decide not to have it in there because the ombre pattern in the background is absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite patterns in the paper. So it's surprising that I have all those sheets left and I didn't use it in a previous project, but it was a card project. So I wanted some of the more bold patterns in the card project, and then I wanted, or I just was left over with a lot of ombre pieces, which actually is going to work out perfect because I need some reduplicatable layout projects. Now, I think that I want to have definitely the gray strip and the stripe strip over on the right, the same lagoon. So I have the Lost Lagoon piece 3 by 5 on the right. I've shortened the stripe, so the stripe is 1 by 8, and I've shortened the gray strip, which is 3/4 by 7. And I decide I can't quite make the gingham work. It looks a little funky, and I know there's going to be more decorating on the right or more embellishing on the right. But now, because I've done everything on a slant, I'm going to place the pieces and get the pieces where they're permanently going to be, and I want to get them flush together on a slant before I divide those pages apart and start working on them. So I'm just going to eyeball here and get those top pieces about 1/2 inch, maybe a little more than 1/2 inch from the top of the ombre piece on a slant. And then I'm going to put my strips on. Those are also going to have to be a little bit on a slant. So I'm going to get those in place and just get everything slanted, and it's barely slanted. It's just so barely going uphill. And I just kind of like to do things like that once in a while for a different play. So it isn't always the same and it isn't always boxy, that you have a little something visually pleasing in your base that makes it stand out and makes it just a little bit different than a normal square or rectangular project. So now I've placed those strips in place. I'm going to get the right strips in place because they're going to be underneath some of the photos and the other photo pieces. I do have, let's see, 3 3x3 photos in this, and 3 3x4 photos, one of them that will be trimmed a little. I do end up with a 4x6 and a 4x4. So we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 photos on one layout is what the final answer is without flip-flaps. You could even add flip-flaps, but I plan to use many more photos from this trip with my husband and I with this series. I love this series, and you could go floral because there is a stamp and die set that goes with this series. It has flowers in it, but you can also easily take it in a more neutral or masculine way. So now I'm just going to arrange the photos, and here's where I decide how cool it might be if I go with a 4x6 photo and it actually cuts off the end of the page, and same with the bottom 3x4. I like that concept. If it's covered up a little bit, if the 4x6 is covered up a little bit by the 3x4, that would be a perfect spot for scenery where I have landscape in the background. I have a lot where I have water butting up next to a gorgeous forest. I have lots of tree photos that would work to be in the 4x6 that way. And a little bit of that is going to hang over the edge on a diagonal. So I'm going to trim that off so it just looks kind of like it trails right off the page, and then the bottom 3x4 is going to trail off as well. And I think it's going to come together once I get embellishments in place. I know what I'm going to use for embellishments, but I don't know how I'm going to use them. So I've actually, for each of these photos, taken a light gray, which I think it's gray granite, and I've made 1/8 inch photo mat, so an 1/8 inch bigger than all the photos. So obviously the 3 would be 3 1/8 by 3 1/8. The 3x4s would be 3 1/8 by 4 1/8, and so on and so forth. So now I'm actually just going to use a ruler to kind of get the slant right so that these photos go uphill, and so that I can keep that angled slant. And I wasn't quite sure here if I would use that other photo up or that other photo down, and I actually decide to make it look like it's cut off. Now, I would have an opportunity here to make one longer photo, like a photo that's even longer than 6 inches, and keep carrying that scenery all the way across to the right page. So maybe a panoramic photo that is super long. That might be really beautiful on this layout where the scene goes from the left page all the way over to the right page. I think that would be really cool. So both of them are going to look cut off. Now I don't have it trimmed off here yet. Now I'm just going to get placement for those long and skinny chevrons that we made. And I did decide to go with Wild Wheat and Lost Lagoon so that I have both colors on both pages. So here's where we get to see the product sneak peek. It's so exciting. So the first one that I am so beyond excited about is Scenic Adventure. It is a stamp and die set sold separately or together in a bundle. It has a tree line, it has a large and a small mountain, it has individual trees, it has a couple dies that just make impressions like moon and stars, and also like little dirt or grass hills. It has florals. This is the little mountain, and it has a little pop out. You can stick a smaller mountain inside or a hill inside, or you can stick some trees inside. It has a couple single trees, double trees, flowers, and bushes. It has lovely sentiments as well, and I think that this is really going to be an over-the-top set that can be used so much for all kinds of outdoors. It also has some clouds. And then the next one that I'm even more excited about is called Sunrise Sailing. So it has a 3D embossing folder that comes separately or together in the bundle, a stamp and die set that comes separately or in the bundle. So the 3D embossing folder, you can stamp, emboss, and cut all at the same time. You can ink the folder. You can create all kinds of scenes. It has gorgeous, gorgeous textures. It has ridged water. It has embossed clouds in the background. And then it has little 2-part sailboats and a larger sailboat. It has waves. waves, a couple waves. It has clouds, and it has clouds that you could cut out of the embossing folder. It also shows little water ringlets and all kinds of things. You could stamp alone by itself. You could stamp and die. You could emboss, stamp, and die. You can do so much with this, and I'm not even going to touch the tip of the iceberg. I'm barely going to be doing anything with these tonight, just a few little decorative elements to get my feet in the water with these new sets. We are in pre-order for these. These will launch on May 6th in the brand new annual catalog. I'm also going to use Glass and Gardens embossing folder. It has two skinny mini embossing folders, a floral and then a really neat glass look. And I've embossed the pattern paper. So I made one full set of the sailboat with the pattern paper, the ombre pattern paper. So I fussy cut out the clouds up in the right hand corner, and I die cut out the sail on the sailboat there, and then I embossed it with the Glass and Garden embossing folder, which is also a new product. Now I have made the sailboat here that I'm working on in gray granite, and I'm not super happy with the color that I chose. So I did go ahead and stamp it with some stamps that come right in the stamp set, gray on gray. And I'm going to leave it lay there for a while, but I think there's more I could do with that. But I grabbed a Spotlight on Nature circle, did a little inking with the Wild Wheat ink pad. Could be a little sunset in the background, and then I've inked the outside here with the basic gray. I do end up changing this and making the sailboat in white. There's so many things I could do. I may end up changing it again. After I lay it overnight, I may make it out of a pattern. There's so many beautiful sailboats that you could make, but I think in order to add a cluster on the corner, I really want it to have this landing spot. So that's why I've chosen the Spotlight on Nature circle. I'm going to tuck the Spotlight on Nature circle under, and then arrange a couple of the sailboats over the top. There are some seagulls that are in the dies that you can either stamp or you can die cut the seagulls out. And so I think adding a few seagulls on there and adding a few clouds. I'm not going to go too over the top with this. I have lots of photo opportunities in it. I have lots of gorgeous soft colors in the background. I just really want to add some trees from Scenic Adventure, and I want to add the sailboats from Sunrise Sailing, two sets that I feel are going to be two of the most popular sets in the brand new catalog, and that I'm so excited to use. So I'm taking some basic gray and a mini ink blending tool, and I'm inking up the clouds. I actually cut these clouds out of the bottom of the sailboat embossing folder, the Sunrise Sailing hybrid embossing folder. So because I cut the sailboat out of it, I still had some of the water that was textured. So I actually cut the clouds, the loose clouds out of that. So I had clouds that were cut out of the background of that embossing folder and clouds that were die cut with a separate die out of the embossed piece of that embossing folder. The combinations are endless with this. I think you're just all going to love it so much. I know I am. And I'm hardly doing, like I said, anything with it. There's going to be so much that you can do with it. I just wanted to add just a couple pieces to this little layout. And since I'm going to be duplicating this layout by lots of numbers, I wanted to keep my embellishing simple so that what I'm die cutting for one, when I multiply that by lots of numbers, that it's doable, that it's a doable project. So now I'm grabbing those trees from Scenic Adventure. I love them so much. I know that we have some other tree dies as well, so feel free to pull out your older tree dies, but be on the lookout for Scenic Adventure. It's so beautiful, and I love the words. So let the journey begin. Just breathe and take it slow. Cheers to another adventure. I can't wait to see you again. You're amazing. So you can see that it's going to be both cards and scrapbooking, which is the best of both worlds. I love it when the icons are big enough for layouts, but small enough for cards. It's always a win-win, and it makes it a much better investment set. You can invest in something that you can use over and over. And I felt like the trees and the clouds in this set, along with the words, and same with the sunrise sailing, I feel like I'll be able to use these two sets in many, many layouts. Now I'm taking a look at the sticker sheet. I love this sticker sheet. You have small, medium, and large icons, banners, all different pieces. I felt like I needed a landing spot up in the upper left, so I used the journal sticker. Now I've already done my journaling, so I don't really need to journal on that. I just really need a landing spot. And so now I'm actually trying some different things with the sailboat. And I was trying to cut that out of different pattern paper to see if I liked that. I didn't like that. So then I cut it out of white and stamped it in basic gray. I did like that better. I'm still not convinced that I'm going to keep it that way, but I'm going to keep it that way for now. Now I stamped You Are Amazing on with Lost Lagoon on white and fussy cut that out, but it just sort of blends in the back. So I'm going to mount that on a scrap piece of Lost Lagoon and fussy cut around that again, just to give it a great background. I love the delicate font in that, and I love that it has a two-part title. So I'm just adding a couple other stickers from the sticker sheet to add to those circles so that I have a nice little foundation for that title, and I think that's going to make me happy. So on the bottom where I put the special day sticker, I just cut the double trees out of basic gray, the single tree out of gray granite, and then another single tree out of mossy meadow, which I know that I didn't use any other mossy meadow, but mossy meadow is a coordinating color with this set. So it's just one more color that worked well, and I thought that little teeny pop in there was nice. I may need to add a little teeny pop of that over on the right page for color balance. I don't get that accomplished during the video, but I'm still thinking about changing the sailboat out off of the video. So I have to think about that. And then I'll also be replacing the stickers with some dies for the other reduplicated layouts that I'll be creating. I'm probably going to create about 20 of these layouts to use up all of that extra paper, and I'll be using that for some kind of a team project or a customer project. So all right, so now I'm just going to take a blending brush and add wild wheat. Now you guys know, or maybe you don't know, that wild wheat is retiring. So the colors from the 2023-2025 in colors are retiring. So it's like boho blue, it's wild wheat. What's another one in there that I love, love, love so much that I've used a lot? I think it's boho blue, if I didn't say that already. Moody mauve is in that. It's retiring. So I actually pulled out some dots, if you missed that are also brand new that I love, love, because I love the textured dots. Those have been a masculine go-to, but these are called the pressed flower motif dots, and they have a really cool design in them. They're actually kind of heavy. They're a heavy metal, and so I added a little part of the stripe sticker up at the top and another little wild wheat sticker at the top, and then I decorated with the pressed flower motif. So you can stay tuned May 7th for a huge product drop in the annual catalog plus online exclusives. If you don't have a demonstrator and you need a catalog in your hands, reach out to me and I'll get you a catalog. I hope you enjoyed these handmade chevrons and all of the brand new product. Let me know in the comments what your favorite is. And won't you give me a thumbs up, hit like, subscribe, the notifications bell, and come back soon for more on Snips by Kelly. Bye-bye.